my name's Taylor Rose and welcome back to my channel where we talk about everything reading and writing. So this week I have finished 2 books and we're going to talk about the first book today. We're talking about Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. It is a YA fantasy book and also a fairy tale retelling. It's kind of hard to tell until you get to the end of the book, if I'm being honest, but it is a Goose Girl retelling, which usually fairy tale retellings are for the really big fairy tales like Cinderella or Beauty and the Beast, which I'm still a big fan of those, but it is fun to see finally some of the lesser known fairy tales get some time in the spotlight. Little Thieves currently has 23,247 ratings on Goodreads with an average of 4.24. This book is technically the first in a trilogy, but it is a good standalone. If you've read Bring Me Their Hearts by Sarah Wolfe, I definitely think you would enjoy this. Very similar vibes, same type of plucky main character. They're both really witty. I do think the world building in Bring Me Their Hearts, which is also a trilogy, is more original, but same vibes going on. If you read The One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, I also think you'll like this book, but One Dark Window is honestly less comedic than Little Thieves. That being said, Little Thieves can be read as a standalone. You can stop and feel totally satisfied. And honestly, I kind of wish maybe I had stopped. We'll talk about it in my review of Painted Devils, but as it was, Little Thieves, I think, was 5 stars. I really liked it, even in the face of the few issues that I did have with the story. For me personally, this was a 5-star read. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so funny. I cried multiple times. The main character's personality is so strong. You really get, even though personally I felt like some of her decisions were kind of strange, you do get carried along by her thought processes and her emotions really easily, which makes the experience very immersive. I'm going to read the synopsis for you. Once upon a time, there was a horrible girl. Vanya Schmidt knows that no gift is freely given, not even a mother's love, and she's on the hook for one hell of a debt. Vanya, the adopted daughter of Death and Fortune, was Princess Giselle's dutiful servant up until a year ago. That was when Vanya's otherworldly mothers demanded a terrible price for their care, and Vanya decided to steal her future back by stealing Giselle's life for herself. The real Giselle is left a penniless nobody, while Vanya uses an enchanted string of pearls to take her place. Now, Vanya leads a lonely but lucrative double life as princess and jewel thief, charming nobility while emptying their coffers to fund her great escape. Then, one heist away from freedom, Vanya crosses the wrong god and is cursed to an untimely end, turning into jewels stone by stone for her greed. Vanya has just 2 weeks to figure out how to break her curse and make her getaway. And with a feral guardian half-god, Giselle's sinister fiancé, and an overeager junior detective on Vanya's tail, she'll have to pull the biggest grift yet to save her own life. So some key information about the story is that it does have a lot of LGBTQ+ representation in the characters. And, it is full of romance, revenge, and robbery. I thought it was a really well done book. Some of the things that I enjoyed the most about this story was the witty dialogue. I found myself laughing out loud many times while I was reading. I cried 3 times while reading this story. My favorite character is, I'm assuming it's pronounced Rain, Ragne. At least that's how the iPhone was reading it to me. She is super funny. She's frequently Black Cat, but she is a shapeshifter. And I think it is I really love characters that are really strongly opinionated, but still really naive to what's actually going on. Rain is the feral half-god following Vanya. So she's lived her whole life in the forest and doesn't know anything about humans, but is still pretty like opinionated about things as she's learning, which is super funny. She's great comedic relief. The build-up for the romance, I really enjoyed. I thought it was really realistic for especially teenagers. It wasn't instant love, but it still has that kind of, you know how being a teenager is. It's like once the feelings are there, they run with them, which is kind of like as an adult reading the story, kind of nostalgic. Between the actual storytelling chapters, there are a few like section breaks that are told as if they are actual fairy tales, which I really enjoyed. Those chapters give you kind of a backstory into all the characters without feeling like some sort of interruption or info dump. One thing that usually for me is pretty iffy, but I actually thought was well done in this book is the world building. You can tell that like it's supposed to be Germany, and they mention some other countries and it's like, oh, that's probably France, that's probably Russia, that's India. Even though everything kind of has different names, they're still using German words for like the titles of the nobility, Vanya's like criminal name. And generally speaking, I kind of find that a cop-out in a lot of fantasy. It's like you didn't actually spend much time making up a world. You're just taking things from real life and repurposing them. But the spiritual side of the world building, I think, made up for that. There are many myths and folklore creatures that are included in the story. The cultural beliefs are largely kind of modernized, but still there's a little twist here and there. So while initially I was disappointed, I'm not gonna lie, I was disappointed going in because I was like, oh, it's just another one of those copycat worlds. But after I got like a quarter of the way into the story, I was hooked on everything that was going on. That's kind of all I can say without getting into spoilers. So if you don't want the story spoiled for you, you should probably stop listening here. I'll try not to give away everything that happens in the book, but a thing or two might slip out, and if you're sensitive to that, I won't blame you for stopping here. So basically, the story is following Vanya 1 year after she has stolen the enchanted necklace from Giselle. It's kind of slowly fed to you. So you're slowly understanding like, oh, that's what's going on. Vanya's goal is to steal enough money while posing as Giselle to run away from her godparents, Fortune and Death. Because when she was 13, Fortune and Death told her she needs to decide who she will be the servant to forever. And of course, Vanya is super offended because she thought that these two gods were her parents, essentially. I didn't really buy her logic for this because it is stated that the gods are not kind of standalone entities. Like the god of death is connected to any death god across the planet. She's just hoping that if she escapes the country outside of this version of death's borders, essentially, that she'll be able to be free of that, having to make that decision. I guess I get it. She is 16 in the beginning of the book, so they're not really known for being the most logical people, but given the fact that she is essentially kind of this criminal mastermind, I would have expected there to be a stronger reason why she was taking this course of action instead of it being like a blind leap of faith. What happens is that Vanya, after stealing jewels and riches at another castle, is caught by the god of the forest, who essentially curses her to turn into jewels until that's all she is. She dies, right? She's a pile of rubies and pearls. I did not think that this was particularly well implemented into the story, given that there's a 2-week time span for this to happen. And they mention the jewels appearing on parts of her body, but it doesn't actually impact anything. Like the first jewel's on her face, a ruby, which, she does have problems with. But then her whole calves, I think, like it described it to me, it sounded like her whole calf is supposed to be covered in pearls. And it's only mentioned when she's trying to disguise herself. Like, oh no, my stockings look lumpy. But then there's a scene where she's making out with the love interest, and that's not brought up at all. You think you would notice. It just felt like it was kind of dropped when it was convenient, if you ask me. Right? Her hands are covered at one point, and it never impacts anything other than once. She's like, oh, I need to wear gloves so nobody sees my gym knuckles. I don't know. To me, I felt like that one through line was kind of dropped. It was very instant love between two of the side characters. And in a lot of the marketing I've seen, so like there are side characters that are like definitively LGBTQ+. But a lot of the advertising I read is posing the main character and her love interest as on the asexual spectrum. And I don't know if I really bought it. Like, I guess they're supposed to be demisexual, but they've only known each other 2 weeks from the beginning to the end of the story. That I think isn't really enough time for the big deal they're making out of I'm never attracted to anybody. And then all of a sudden, oh, but I'm attracted to you. And it's like, you've known this guy for 7 days. Like, y'all have interacted a handful of times, and you're supposed to tell me that that's enough for you to get over that hurdle? I don't know. I didn't like it. Because to me, it felt like that's the normal progression, especially for young people who have never been in relationships before. But maybe I'm also weird? I don't know. I guess let me know in the comments down below. Like, to me, the feelings that they're expressing towards realizing they like each other is like, that's normal. Like, that's normal for people. But maybe it's not. I don't know. I thought that Vanya's characterization was so strong, especially regarding her emotions and reflections about previous trauma she's faced. Like, those were the scenes that made me cry when she was really in her head. And I don't usually like books that are written in the first person present, which this book is, but I can see why a lot of people like it. It was very immersive when she was like in the thralls of extreme emotion. Have you read Little Thieves by Margaret Owen, and what did you think? Let me know in the comments down below. I have finished the second book already, Painted Devils. I have not yet started Holy Terrors, which is the third book, and I don't know. I mean, Little Thieves was like a high, and then I did have more issues with Painted Devils than I did have with Little Thieves. So, well, that's it for today. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.